What if the very thing you're desperately clinging to is the prison preventing your happiness? Why do we hold on to pain, grudges, and broken dreams with the same fierce grip we use to protect our most precious treasures? Is attachment really love? Or could true freedom lie in the radical act of opening our hands and letting life flow through our fingers like water? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Universal Life Stories. Today's story reveals an ancient Buddhist secret that has liberated countless souls from self-imposed suffering. You might be carrying invisible chains right now, forged from your own attachments and fears. This timeless wisdom could be the key that unlocks a freedom you never knew was possible. While listening to this story, we will discover profound truths about release and renewal that can transform your life starting today. So stay with us till the end. In a mountain town where prayer flags danced in eternal winds lived a woman named Lena. She was intelligent, successful, and had built what everyone considered an enviable life: a thriving art gallery, a beautiful home, and a marriage that had once been the envy of their social circle. But beneath the polished exterior, Lena was suffocating under the weight of loss that she carried like stones in her pockets, growing heavier with each passing day. 2 years earlier, Lena's husband, Michael, had asked for a divorce, shattering the life they had carefully constructed together. The gallery they had built from nothing, the home they had lovingly restored, even their shared dreams of traveling the world. Everything felt tainted by his absence. But more devastating than the practical losses was the betrayal itself, the way trust had crumbled like sandcastles before an unexpected tide. Lena had responded to the divorce by clinging even more tightly to what remained. She worked 18-hour days at the gallery, refusing help from friends who offered support. She kept Michael's belongings exactly where he had left them, as if maintaining the physical space might somehow reverse the emotional devastation. She replayed conversations obsessively, analyzing every word for signs she might have missed, evidence that could have prevented the collapse of her carefully ordered world. The harder Lena held on, the more life seemed to slip through her fingers. The gallery began struggling as her obsessive control drove away both employees and customers. Friends stopped calling, exhausted by her inability to talk about anything except her failed marriage and bitter resentment. Sleep became elusive, her nights filled with endless mental rehearsals of arguments she should have won, explanations she should have demanded, and changes she could have made to prevent Michael from leaving. One autumn morning, when the mountain air carried the first hint of winter's approach, Lena received unexpected news that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love and loss. Michael had been in a serious car accident and was hospitalized in critical condition. Despite everything that had passed between them, despite the lawyers and bitter exchanges and mutual friends forced to choose sides, Lena found herself driving through the mountain passes to reach him, her heart pounding with feelings she couldn't name or understand. At the hospital, she encountered Michael's sister Sarah, who had always been kind to Lena even during the worst moments of the divorce proceedings. Sarah's eyes were red from crying, but when she saw Lena approaching down the sterile corridor, her face lit up with genuine relief. "I'm so glad you came," Sarah whispered, embracing Lena with the warmth of shared history and mutual concern. As they sat together in the waiting room, surrounded by the antiseptic smell of hospitals and the quiet conversations of other worried families, Sarah shared something that would forever change how Lena understood her marriage and its ending. "Lena," Sarah said softly, "I need to tell you something Michael made me promise to keep secret. He didn't leave because he stopped loving you. He left because he was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's, and he couldn't bear the thought of watching you sacrifice your life to care for him as he slowly disappeared." The revelation hit Lena like a physical blow, knocking the breath from her lungs and forcing her to grab the plastic chair arm for support. Every angry assumption, every bitter interpretation, every moment of feeling abandoned and betrayed suddenly shifted into an entirely different configuration, like a kaleidoscope turned to reveal a completely new pattern from the same colored glass. Michael had left not from selfishness, but from a misguided attempt at protection, choosing to bear the burden of his diagnosis alone rather than asking Lena to share the weight of an impossible future. He had crafted lies about falling out of love, about needing space, and about finding someone else, because he believed those lies would hurt less than the truth about his fading mind and the care he would inevitably require. That night, as Lena sat beside Michael's unconscious form in the intensive care unit, she experienced something that Buddhist teachers describe as the profound suffering that can either break us open or break us apart. Watching the man she had loved and lost, and still loved breathing with the help of machines, she felt 2 years of carefully constructed resentment begin to crack like ice in spring sunshine. For the first time since the divorce, Lena allowed herself to feel the full depth of her love for Michael without the protective armor of anger and blame. The pain was excruciating, like removing a bandage that had grown into the wound. But with the pain came something unexpected, a sense of spaciousness, as if her heart were expanding to hold both love and loss without needing to choose between them. During the long hours of waiting, a hospital chaplain named Father Thomas began visiting the intensive care waiting room, offering quiet presence to families navigating the liminal space between hope and grief. Unlike many religious figures Lena had encountered, Father Thomas seemed to embody the peaceful detachment that Buddhist monks cultivated, speaking less about doctrine and more about the art of holding life lightly. One evening, as Lena struggled with the decision about Michael's care should he remain in a vegetative state, Father Thomas shared a story that would become the turning point in her understanding of love and attachment. He spoke of a Buddhist monk who carried an elderly woman across a muddy river during his travels. Hours later, his young companion finally asked why the monk had broken his vows by touching a woman. The elder monk smiled and replied, "I set her down at the river's edge. Are you still carrying her?" "Lena," Father Thomas said gently, "we often confuse love with attachment, holding with honoring. True love is like cupping water in our hands. We can offer it, nurture it, even drink from it, but the moment we try to possess it, it slips away." Michael left because he thought his illness would force you to carry him indefinitely. But perhaps the greatest act of love is learning when to set someone down, not from lack of caring, but from the deepest compassion. That night, Lena made the most difficult and loving decision of her life. She whispered to Michael's sleeping form everything she had been unable to say during their marriage. Her gratitude for the joy they had shared, her forgiveness for the lies he had told to protect her, and her permission for him to go if that was what his soul required. She released him from any obligation to fight for a life that no longer served his highest good, and in doing so, she released herself from the attachment that had been slowly poisoning her own capacity for peace. Michael passed away peacefully 3 days later, and Lena experienced something she had never expected, relief mixed with sorrow and gratitude intertwined with grief. She had learned to hold love and loss simultaneously, without needing one to cancel out the other or demanding that life conform to her preferences about how love stories should end. The months that followed brought profound changes to Lena's approach to living. She began studying Buddhist teachings about non-attachment, not as emotional numbing, but as radical acceptance of life's impermanent nature. She learned that suffering comes not from loss itself, but from our resistance to loss, our demand that life be different than it is, and our attachment to outcomes that exist only in our imagination. Slowly, deliberately, Lena began the practice of letting go in small, daily ways. She donated Michael's belongings not from anger, but from loving recognition that holding onto physical objects couldn't preserve the love they had shared. She restructured the gallery to reflect her own artistic vision rather than the compromise they had negotiated together. She reached out to friends she had pushed away during her period of bitter isolation, apologizing not for feeling pain, but for making her pain the center of every interaction. Most profoundly, Lena began practicing what Buddhists call loving-kindness meditation, sending genuine wishes for happiness and peace not only to Michael's memory, but also to the version of herself that had clung so desperately to a marriage that was already ending. She learned to forgive herself for the very human tendency to grasp at security in an inherently insecure world, to demand permanence from experiences that were always meant to be temporary. The transformation wasn't immediate or linear. There were days when grief felt fresh as morning snow, when the temptation to retreat into old patterns of attachment and control felt overwhelming. But each time Lena practiced the art of opening her hands, of releasing her grip on how she thought life should unfold, she experienced the freedom that comes from aligning with reality rather than fighting against it. A year after Michael's death, Lena met someone new, a photographer named David whose own journey through loss had taught him similar lessons about holding life lightly. Their relationship developed with a quality of presence and non-attachment that Lena had never experienced before. Instead of trying to possess each other or guarantee future outcomes, they chose daily to offer their love freely, without conditions or demands for permanence. When friends remarked on the peaceful quality of Lena's new relationship, she would smile and share what Father Thomas had taught her, that the secret to love is not in holding tight, but in holding sacred, not in grasping, but in honoring, not in attachment, but in appreciation. She had learned that true love is like tending a garden. We can provide nourishment and care, but we cannot control the seasons or prevent the natural cycles of growth and dormancy that characterize all living things. The gallery began thriving again, but in a completely different way. Instead of controlling every detail from a place of fear, Lena trusted her staff and artists to bring their own vision to the shared creative space. The result was more vibrant and authentic than anything she could have orchestrated through micromanagement and anxious oversight. Years later, when people would ask Lena about the secret to the serenity they sensed in her presence, she would share the profound truth she had learned through loss and liberation. That attachment is not love, but fear dressed up as devotion. And that freedom comes not from getting what we want, but from wanting what we have. Not from controlling outcomes, but from embracing the sacred uncertainty that makes life both precious and impermanent. She understood now why Buddha had taught that attachment is the root of all suffering. Not because love itself causes pain, but because our desperate attempts to make permanent what is inherently temporary create the very suffering we seek to avoid. True happiness, she discovered, comes from loving fully while holding lightly, from giving our whole hearts while keeping our hands open, from embracing the beautiful, heartbreaking truth that everything we love will eventually be transformed or taken away, and that this impermanence is not the enemy of joy, but its deepest source. The secret to letting go, Lena learned, is not about stopping love, but about purifying it from the poison of possession, not about becoming indifferent, but about becoming infinitely tender toward the fleeting miracle of each moment we are given to share our love with this temporary, precious, ever-changing world. If this story touched something deep within your soul, give it a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What are you ready to release in order to find true freedom? How has letting go brought unexpected peace to your life? Your sharing might be the permission someone else needs to open their own tightly closed fists. Subscribe to Universal Life Stories for more transformative tales that awaken wisdom and heal the heart. Until next time, practice holding your life like a butterfly, with reverence, gentleness, and the courage to let it fly when the time comes for transformation. Stay free.